All right, friends, welcome back. Today, Europe's attention is absolutely riveted on a bombshell announcement that's become the number one story in media across the continent, a statement dropped in the European Parliament by the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and it was a chilling one. She declared this morning, there is something new and dangerous happening in our skies. What is she talking about? It's a series of airspace violations targeting Poland, Romania, Estonia, Denmark, and more recently Belgium and Germany. According to her, these aren't just random accidents. This is a coordinated campaign. Some of these incidents are being directly linked to, let's just say, very serious coordinated actions. She wrapped up her statement with a stark choice. Either we turn a blind eye to this threat, or we meet it head-on. She's calling for unity, for a readiness to face new forms of confrontation. I worked on the inside of a major, well-known media corporation. I saw how the real stories got bent and twisted to fit a pre-approved narrative, and I had to walk away. Now I'm independent. I say what needs to be said, and I bring you the facts that truly matter. If you believe in that mission, if you value this kind of unfiltered analysis, please take a moment to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and maybe even consider becoming a sponsor. It's your support that keeps this independent platform alive and allows me to continue bringing you the truth. Every bit helps, and it means the world to me. And as if on cue, EU leaders are set to meet in Brussels on October 23rd and 24th to hash out a roadmap for a new defense strategy. The main event? Building a so-called drone wall to ensure Europe is prepared for the challenges ahead. They're discussing this with extreme urgency. The tension has never been higher. And almost at the exact same time, the administration of US President Donald Trump sent a new trade proposal to the EU leadership, one that officials in Brussels are already calling very complex. They fear it could completely undermine the recent trade agreements between the two allies. It's packed with new demands concerning digital technology regulations, corporate compliance, and climate rules. More details are promised later, but the initial reaction from EU officials is one of serious discontent and anxiety. The message seems to be there will be no peace and quiet from the US. Meanwhile, let's turn to Germany, because the German Chamber of Commerce and Industry just announced that the country's main industrial sectors are collapsing. This downturn has hit all the key areas: manufacturing, construction, and energy. Experts are highlighting that industrial production has plummeted to its lowest level since the pandemic, all driven by sky-high costs for energy and labor. What was once supposed to be an autumn of reforms is now looking like a winter of discontent. It's becoming harder and harder to justify any kind of positive forecast for 2026. This is both a warning and an urgent call for immediate action aimed squarely at Friedrich Merz's federal government. And speaking of Germany, the country holds the key vote on another critical decision coming up on October 15th. That's the day of the vote on an initiative to massively increase surveillance of citizens' private communications. The European Commission has put forward a draft law, supposedly to protect the younger generation. Under this proposal, messaging services like WhatsApp, Signal, or Telegram would be required to automatically scan all photos and videos in users' private chats before they're even encrypted. If any suspicious material is found, the companies would be obligated to hand it over to special EU agencies. Opponents are already sounding the alarm, warning that under the guise of protecting kids, Brussels is paving the way for total pervasive surveillance. This is the end of privacy, freedom of speech, and democracy. That's a direct quote from Rainer Wendt, the head of the German police union. As you can see, the final word rests with Germany, so we're watching very, very closely to see what they decide, especially since the German federal government talks more about protecting democracy than anyone else. And we're not done with Germany yet. They're still desperately searching for ways to make people work longer and harder. Now, a proposal has emerged from Friedrich Merz's own party to potentially cancel Reformation Day as an official public holiday. Gita Konnemann, who heads the Small and Medium-Sized Business Association within the Christian Democratic Union, argues that in traditionally Protestant regions like Lower Saxony, the churches are empty on Sundays anyway. She questioned the holiday's relevance, suggesting that people should just work more, especially during an economic crisis. She asked, can we really afford things that reduce our productivity? That was her call to action and her justification. However, it turns out the majority of citizens completely disagree. A recent poll shows that 57% of Germans want to keep all existing holidays. It seems the German people have decided you can be frugal about anything, but not about your days off. The debate continues. What's more important, the economy or an extra day off? Time will tell. Now for another fascinating item out of Germany today. From Thuringia, a state in the eastern part of the country, they are seriously discussing a wild idea, creating a housing police. The Left Party wants to force all cities in the region to allocate a certain percentage of social housing. And to make sure no one is overcharging for rent, they're proposing special inspections by apartment inspectors. On top of that, tenants couldn't have their electricity or gas shut off, even if the landlord isn't paying the bills. The left says this is a blow against speculators. Opponents, however, are quick to point out that it was under the left's governance that social housing in the region became scarce in the first place. Now, let's jump over to France, where the Bureau of the National Assembly has just shot down an initiative from left-wing political forces to impeach President Emmanuel Macron amidst a deepening political crisis. During the review, 10 members voted against even bringing the issue to the floor, with only 5 in favor and 5 abstaining. And here's the strange part. The abstentions included representatives from a right-wing party and the National Rally. As you know, the political crisis in France escalated on October 6th when the recently appointed Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu resigned. The growing concern now is that this protracted political crisis, and all signs point to it dragging on, could have a devastating impact on the economy of the entire Eurozone. Experts are explaining that France, which boasts the second largest economy in the bloc, may not be able to handle the reforms the EU needs to stay competitive in this turbulent geopolitical landscape, especially with rapidly growing competition from the United States and China. As we all know, in that kind of fight, only the strongest survive. So now the calls for Macron himself to resign are getting louder. Macron, for his part, says he's ready to take responsibility if all other options fail. So we're left watching to see how exactly those options are going to fail. And there are always some interesting, almost surreal moments in the midst of all this. Ursula von der Leyen just celebrated her 67th birthday right there in Strasbourg and received an unexpected gift from a Green Party MEP, Terry Reintke. The gift bag she was handed contained chocolate. As the Green MEP explained, the idea was simple. Let the serotonin and dopamine do their work and push Ursula towards greener legislation. That's what she needs to focus on first and foremost. Truth be told, the relationship between the Greens and von der Leyen is anything but sweet right now. The Greens are furious that the European Commission is softening its climate policy, though frankly, no one besides the Greens seems to have noticed any softening. But as the Green deputy admitted, it could have been worse. So, with a little jab about a lack of serotonin and dopamine, the Greens made their point in their own unique way. All this is happening while the European Parliament, as you know, is gearing up for a vote of no confidence in the head of the European Commission herself. So we are watching that space very carefully. Be sure to write your opinions in the comments. Let me know what you think about all of this. So let's quickly recap what we've covered. We started with Ursula von der Leyen's grave, warning about a new and dangerous threat in Europe's skies, coupled with new tough trade demands from the Trump administration. We then saw how Germany, the EU's economic powerhouse, is facing an internal collapse of its key industries while debating deeply divisive measures like mass surveillance and cancelling holidays. Over in France, the political system is paralyzed, with President Macron facing impeachment calls and the whole Eurozone economy at risk. And finally, we saw the deep fractures within the EU leadership itself, symbolized by that sarcastic birthday gift for von der Leyen, just as she faces a no-confidence vote. Thank you for joining me. If you believe in independent, unfiltered news that gets straight to the point, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you're able to, consider becoming a sponsor. Your support is what makes this work possible. It keeps this voice independent, and it allows me to keep digging for the truth for you. I truly appreciate every single one of you. I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, stay safe.